All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Hearing. Today, I'm very honored to be joined by Lena and Jack Kyman. Lena is a sales audiology manager at Phonak. Been there a few years, I know, but has been a clinical audiologist for a number of years now. And she wanted to bring on her dad for this conversation to talk about sort of the way in which he's been using his hearing aids and the Rogers system. I think this is a underappreciated aspect of hearing aid technology and some of the different ways you can outfit hearing aids with accessories. And so I thought this would make for a great conversation today to have Lena kind of share her own journey of how she's come to embrace the Rogers system, and then talk through with her dad how he uses it and the value that he gets. So, Lena, I'll pass it off to you. And if you want to just kind of kick off and share maybe the way in which your journey has gone with Roger.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Dave. I love Roger. I'm passionate about it. I shout about it all the time, but it hasn't always been that way, as you and I have talked about before. So when I was a clinician working in a private practice, seeing a lot of patients, fitting a lot of hearing aids, I really kind of shied away from Roger. I was intimidated by the technology. To me, it seemed like extra and complicated, and I didn't know how to talk about it. It wasn't clear to me that it was different from just a regular remote microphone or accessory. And to be honest, I kind of wanted nothing to do with it as a clinician. Fast forward to when I started working for Phonak as a clinical trainer, it was obviously time to really pull up my sleeves, dive into this technology. And it turns out it's really not that complicated. Once you just kind of embrace it, it's really easy to use both as a clinician. It's easy to fit as a patient. It's easy to use. And I've really had the benefit of getting to watch my dad along his journey with Roger. So, Dad, you can speak more to it, but your hearing loss journey is somewhat unique in that you wear both a hearing aid and a cochlear implant. So different types of technology, which makes any type of streaming a little bit more complicated. So streaming from a phone or a computer, because you have two different manufacturers, two different types of technology, there's an extra layer there. And Roger is really what bridges that gap. And so I think getting to see you on your journey and getting to see some of the patients that I was able to assist with as a trainer talking about Roger, it's been this eye-opening kind of magical technology that it's like, why isn't everybody wearing this? Why aren't more people talking about this? Because it's one thing to say, oh yes, Roger helps you hear 61% better in group conversations, but yeah, that's an impressive number, but until you hear it, until you see someone else experiencing it, it's really hard to convey that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And I want to kick it over to Jack now. So, Jack, why don't you share what that initial experience with Roger was like? Like, were you a fan from the first blush, or did it take some time to get acclimated to it?
Well, I think it took a little bit of time to get acclimated in what it could do and what it couldn't do. It's so much more than just a microphone that goes to my ears. I mean, it's still, I feel it filters out background noise. It doesn't amplify everything where I'm sitting in a restaurant going, God, it's loud in here. And I can hear the tinkling of the silverware and the glasses over there and the ice over here. And this guy's pulling a chair out. And I'm just trying to understand the person right across from me. And Roger zeroes in on that so that it's much more selective in what goes to my ears. So in a group setting, sitting around a table with different people, I can almost hear each one of them equally well separately. And it really is amazing to me that it works as well as it does. I mean, especially a group setting, 8 people out to dinner, that used to be like a nightmare for me, because not only couldn't I understand this conversation, I couldn't understand any of the conversations because I'm getting bits and pieces of all of them. And Roger seems to like focus in on the hearing I want to hear, and amplifies that stuff. It has a few little quirks though. I'll go from one room to another, and the distance will be too great for Roger to amplify that. And I get these little tones, dee, 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 and that means Roger's looking for the sound to amplify. But it gets to be a little bit annoying because it's not going to stop until I get back in the range of Roger. And then it works fine again. But the way we have our TV set up, occasionally when we turn things off, everything doesn't go off at the same time. So the TV will go off, the tuner will go off, but Roger is still sending me video from the last TV show I watched. Even though nothing else is on, it's like, where's this noise coming from?
You have an extremely complicated TV setup, though.
Oh, yeah, we have a really concocted TV setup. It doesn't, I don't know why it's the way it is. But anyway, Roger has, basically seamlessly gotten into the mix, and it definitely makes watching TV so much more enjoyable. I can personally adjust my volume without adjusting the room volume. So that is really helpful. That is really helpful.
So can you share what Roger accessories you're using? It sounds like you have the TV adapter. Do you carry one with you all the time as your, like the multi-mic, or what's the day in your life? Like, which one are you pairing to individual Roger units, or is it just one device that you're tethering into every single time?
No, it's actually, I have two devices. I have a Roger Select and the Roger Pen.
Okay.
I tend to use the Select with the TV dock, and I use the Pen for the computer and most outdoor situations.
Gotcha.
They're about equally as good, I think, in outdoor situations. The Pen might be a little bit more selective because I can use it as a directional microphone by putting it in front of somebody, and that seems to work better too. So for me, it's extremely helpful. Going on a trip, you got to do. There's more batteries, there's more connectors, there's more chargers. Everything has its accompanying technology to go with it. So I'm still working all that out. But in general, I'm using it a lot more. When I first started, I kind of was a little reluctant, and oh God, more technology I got to learn. Just don't ask me a password, please. So, but as I get less cranky and more accepting of the technology, I find that it works very well. I mean, the problem isn't the Roger, the problem is me. Well,
and I think I remember like when it shifted, like I was telling you about this technology and you were like, nope, not interested. I don't want any more. I don't think I need it. I can get by. I do okay. And I think it's this, again, hearing loss is invisible and it's hard to understand a tangible benefit because your hearing aid and implant, they really do help you a lot. I mean, the technology you wear in your ears is such incredible technology. So it's not about, oh, well, I can get by, I'm doing okay. Whereas like once I kind of encouraged you enough, AKA forced you to start using it, then it was like, I think I remember you saying, why would I choose to hear less? So it was kind of this shift. You didn't want it. You didn't think you needed it because you were doing okay. But then once you got a taste of how much better it can be, now you're back to being the life of the party, and for better or for worse, making more jokes when we're out. And
but there's no question, it definitely helps me participate in social settings. You know, I used to shy away from them because I was always the guy that's, what? I didn't hear you. Could you speak up? What? I hate being that guy. And consequently, to avoid being that guy, you just kind of drift back. And next thing you know, you're out of the conversation and, trying to move on to try and fit into another one. But with Roger, the technology really works, and it really is helpful in group settings. I mean, there's no question about it. It's helpful.
So when you're in at a cocktail party or you're at a dinner party, you're carrying the pen with you. And if you're like walking around, do you kind of keep that on your person, or are you actually holding it in your hand and like aiming it at the people that you're talking to? How does that actually work in practice?
I usually have it in my hand so that I can direction it if I need to. But sometimes I just wear it around my neck.
Okay.
If we're in the car, oftentimes I'll have my wife wear it around her neck so I can hear her better without all the engine noise.
That makes sense.
It's really helpful in that situation.
That's really interesting. Okay, so Lena, I guess to put your clinician hat back on, when you're talking to other providers, what are the red flags they should be looking for that would indicate this might be a really good candidate for Roger?
Anybody who wants to hear better. I mean, I really had this shift where, and they've done studies so let me back up. In the beginning, when I was intimidated of Roger, in my mind, it was just for severe to profound hearing losses or kids in school, and only those two categories. Whereas when you actually look at the insights and the data, the majority of people who use Roger have a moderate degree of hearing loss or less. So it's not about severity on the audiogram, and once you reach a certain criteria, then you should talk about Roger. Ultimately, anybody who needs to hear better in noise or over distance can benefit from Roger. And I think the demo is the most important thing, because again, it's hard to convey. Yes, I can tell you can hear X percentage better, X amount better, but until you actually, I was going to say see it, until you hear it, really hearing is believing with it. So for me, I really, when I was a trainer, visiting different hearing care professionals all along the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic, I really focused on demoing Roger myself to these people so they could hear it, and then encouraging them to demo Roger with their patients. And just having one in the office, it's so much easier now than it used to be to connect it to a hearing aid. There's no more boots and shoes and cables and pairing and all of these things. It's so much easier with Roger Direct that you really can incorporate it into a regular procedure where you're demonstrating this technology.
That's very interesting. So Jack, how do you pair these, especially if you're using the pen and this stationary, one that you're the Select for your TV or your computer? How are you toggling between these? Is it pretty easy?
Oh, super easy. All you have to do is find the pairing button and put it up against it on both sides. You hear the tone and boom, you're in. And really? If I want to change to the other one, I just pair it with the other one. I mean, I was in the beginning, I was kind of intimidated about that.
Right.
I have to pair it every single time. I mean, it's easy as pie, really. I mean, there's
if he can do it, anyone can do it.
That's true.
And this is all a byproduct of the Roger Direct with the sword chip, right? So pretty much the newer models dating back a few years and on all have this direct integration in the actual hearing aid itself.
Yeah, so he has the digital receiver inside of his hearing aid. On his implant, he has an actual physical Roger receiver that's there.
Okay.
But it's just connected to it. It lives there, and he still just pairs it with one button.
Gotcha. And is there any weird like latency issues between the hearing aid and the cochlear implant, or is it all pretty bimodal? It's consistent?
Very consistent. Very
cool.
consistent. I've never had the problem of, what's going on here. No, it's smooth.
And I know, Lena, you had mentioned before that like you guys will go and you'll hike and you'll be in like, in the outdoors. And it sounds like that's probably similar to the use case that your dad just described about, his wife in the car and she wears this. I mean, that's a really interesting aspect to this is because I'm thinking about, in a school, you could have the teacher, wear this, or a lecturer, whatever, in the boardroom, putting this, somewhere where it's close to the speaker. So, I mean, is that kind of, was that another aha moment that you had of how this all can kind of work in terms of placing the receivers on an individual that you're going to be conversing with for an extended period of time?
It has definitely come in handy when we go rock climbing together and either he's belaying me or I'm belaying him, and I'll have it around my neck. So that way, if he's up on the wall and I'm belaying him, I can say, hey, there's a left foot right there. Just reach your foot out, or you're super close for maybe something that he can't see. And same thing, if I'm up on the wall and he's belaying me, I can say, hold on, I'm tired, I need a break. Or, I can talk to him. It's come in handy in that way for sure.
Oh, that communication is, we couldn't have it without Roger.
Right.
If I'm 30 feet up on the wall, I wouldn't be able to hear what you were saying. What?
Yeah.
And I can just imagine, how frustrating it would be. But when you've got the Roger on, or I've got the Roger on, and you've got the mic, it's like you're whispering in my ear. It's very good.
Yeah, I think that's so neat. This is a really interesting way to sort of accessorize hearing aids. And, as I mentioned at the top, it seems like it's something that it's flown under the radar for a period of time. I think that maybe it does feel a little bit like daunting, but I think that as you two have discussed today, it's like there's a lot of value here in how you can get a lot more out of your hearing aids and cochlear implants. So like, I guess the closing question to you, Jack, would be, how significant has this been versus the period of time prior to being introduced to Roger? Like, has this changed, the perception that you have even of like the amplification that you're already using, because this is like using that on steroids now, basically?
Exactly. It goes from, it's hard to explain. It goes from kind of sort of helpful to crystal clear helpful.
Wow.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump with Roger, without Roger. It's so much more distinct and clear, without just jacking up the volume. I can tell the difference between a T and a P. And that, is a big difference when you have hearing loss. You understand so much better instead of just guessing what the person was saying.
I think there's this kind of misconception that I was absolutely guilty of, that Roger is like a last resort. It's like you try hearing aids, you turn up the volume, you fine tune, you add manual programs, you adjust with the app. And once you get to a point where you're still struggling in these really difficult environments, then you think of Roger as a last resort. Whereas really, it's part of a hearing system. It's not like Roger's there for when the hearing aids aren't good enough. This is the ultimate pairing for these specific listening environments where it's noisy, or you're in a group, or there's a distance and you're rock climbing or hiking or in the car. When you think about it as this like cohesive system. It's your hearing system, not like, oh, a last resort because this wasn't good enough. I think for me, that's been the shift of this is the best case scenario for your hearing.
Very well said.
One of the funny things that I notice with Roger is, I'll have Roger on the table and we'll go out and then I'll go to the restroom or something. And on my way to the restroom, I'm still hearing all the conversation at the table. They don't know. I can still hear them, So if they're talking about me, I'm going to find out.
It's a little bit of like a superpower in that sense. You can hear through walls.
It is, really.
Yeah. Well, this has been really enlightening. I love that you brought your dad on here because I think that this, personally for me, this has really resonated to hear a firsthand experience. And I think it's cool, Lena, to hear kind of like the way that your thought process around this has kind of matured as you've gotten more firsthand experience. So I just think this is a great option for all professionals to be thinking about are, these remote microphone systems that can be tethered into these seemingly like just more and more connected devices that we're using. So, and it's really great to hear, Jack, that this was something that it doesn't feel overwhelming or, like it interferes with your day too much. It's pretty easy to pair it and use it. And it sounds like it's a pretty seamless experience.
Yeah, very easy. If I could get the hang of it, anybody could get the hang of it, really.
Fantastic. Well, thank you two so much. And thanks for everybody tuned in here. We'll chat with you next time.
Okay. Thank you.